For YouTube, it just takes a second. We are now live on YouTube, but just, oops.
Thank you, Shali. I will call the Cities Association of Santa Clara County Board of Directors regular meeting of May 9th, 2024 to order at 7:05 p.m. Welcome back to Los Altos. Our last meeting was in Sunnyvale. We brought the sun with us, so thanks for being here. Shali, can you please take roll?
Ann Bybee. Present. Sheila Mohan.
Here.
Lisa Fliger.
Here.
Stanley Mock. Matthew Hudes.
Here.
Carmen Montano.
Here.
Javid Elahi.
Present.
Mark Turner.
Here.
Margaret Abekoga.
Here.
Greer Stone.
Here.
Rosemary Kamei.
Here.
Kathy Watanabe.
Here.
Tina Walia.
Here.
Larry Klein.
Here.
With 13 present, we have quorum.
Great, thank you, Shali. Next, we'll move to public comment on non-agendized items. Do we have any public comment either in the room or online?
None.
Seeing none, we'll move to our first agenda item, which are our minutes from our last board meeting of April 11th. Any discussion, questions, comments? If not, I will look for a motion.
Second by Klein.
Moved by Carmen, Mayor Montano, seconded by Mayor Klein. Any public comment on this item?
None online.
We can call roll.
Is it a roll call vote?
Is everybody in the room, so we don't need to do? Okay, perfect. So all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Who is absent? What city? Oh, Los Altos Hills stands?
Yes.
Okay, thank
He
you.
told me he was not able to come.
I'm glad so many of us are here. So moving to the next item, which is our president's update, I have a couple items. The first is I want to apologize again for our last meeting running late. I'll try to do a better job tonight of keeping everybody on time. And so our speakers and everybody else here who will be presenting will work together to make sure we get out of here by 9 or earlier. CASCC update, I spoke at the LAC meeting before the board meeting because I serve on the CASCC board and I gave an update there. Still wearing that hat, I wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of two upcoming events. On May 22nd, we have a luncheon hosted at Cisco that will be covering both the BAFA bond and also the CBRT measure. And Cisco is subsidizing the cost of the lunch, so it isn't as expensive as it has been in the past. So we really hope that many of our Cities Association members and your fellow council members can attend that event on May 22nd. The other upcoming event that CASCC is hosting, and this is actually the City Pack event, which is the fundraising arm of CASCC. They're hosting a social event. So May 22nd, education, learning, advocacy. But the June 6th event, it will be at Top Golf. And we're hoping cities will form teams and staff will show up and we'll get some competition going, like we used to do back in the day when we did bocce. So please mark those dates on your calendars, look for emails, and I really hope we can have a strong showing from the Cities Association. The June 13th event, it's actually an agenda item later on, but it's coming along very nicely. We're very excited to share some updates with all of you later on, but please also have that date on your calendar. It will be here in our community center in our Grand Oak room. Looking forward to that event. During the LAC meeting, we were talking about the RENA process, and I plan to work with the chair of LAC, Tina Walia, to see if the board or the LAC, what's the right place for us to discuss as a Cities Association, feedback, things we learned about the RENA process, things that we think we want to improve about the RENA process, because now is the time to give that feedback as they look to the next cycle. So I'll work with the chair of LAC to figure out, do we do that discussion at the board meeting or at the LAC meeting? But I thought it was something important that I took away from the LAC meeting earlier. And then the last update relates to the planning collaborative. Your city should all be familiar with the planning collaborative. We received a grant from ABAG, was it 2 years ago, to help with the housing element and planning process. And I know the planning collaborative, which we contracted with, helped a lot of our cities. We're now moving to REAP 2.0, where hopefully we'll get the funding we need to fund all the projects that the planning collaborative would like to work with our cities on. But the two quick updates are, one, a month ago, they needed to start setting a schedule about the work and projects they could cover if a contract were put in place. And the time and cost associated with that, I think it was a few hours, and the total cost was $3,000. We didn't have time to come back to the board, and from your cities, they needed to support all of your staff. And so we authorized only $3,000 for them to do that work. We've put everything else on hold because we want to see how much we receive from ABAG and HCD before we actually put a contract in place with the planning collaborative to do the work that your city staff is demanding. So if you hear from your city staff about, oh, the Cities Association is holding up the planning collaborative work, we're waiting, our attorneys have advised us that we need to have a clear picture of what the funding will be and have a contract in place before we actually start that work. So we're on it, Shali's sending emails, and so hopefully we can get that planning collaborative work started as soon as possible. And then the last thing, it was actually very cute earlier when we had San Jose and I think Montserrat make a joke about the whole lion and mouse situation, where Montserrat said, you know, I'll help the big city, San Jose. And that was really nice. I love seeing that happen at our meetings. And so with that, any public comment on the president's update? Any questions?
No comments online.
Thank you, Shali. All right, next we will move to our MTC update, and thanks to Margaret, we've had her on our agenda twice before, and she has graciously said, I'll wait till the next one. So we've moved her up, and now is her time. So go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you, President. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be back. It's been 2 months, so I'm not really sure where we left off, but I think well, I'm happy to take questions. So very quickly, when I presented, it's an update on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Actually, I think I left off, like I went through the whole presentation, but the key to one of the biggest issues we're dealing with, slide 16, please, is on the transportation side, is that because of the pandemic, as you all know, ridership dropped immensely. And as a result, many of our transit agencies are facing a fiscal cliff. So, is the right slide? There. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, so this is a little bit of an old slide, but as you can see, in June 2020, ridership just completely dropped. And we've been slowly improving. This is up to July 2022, but I think BTA at this time is about 60%. I think we're actually close to 80% ridership returning. So we're doing BTA is doing pretty well. But some of the other transit agencies that are mostly dependent on fare box recovery. So that's the interesting thing. So main sources of revenue for transit is fare box recovery or sales tax measures, and then there's funding from the state and federal government. So for BTA, in the past, it's been criticism that we had very low sales fare box recovery, and we're mainly dependent on sales tax. But during the pandemic, that actually helped us. And so BART, Caltrain, for many of us relevant, most relevant, has been 60 to 70% fare box recovery revenue and not as much sales tax. So those, there's 7 operators, actually, if you can go to the next slide, that are facing the major, or one more, sorry. Oh, there we go. So facing major shortfalls in the next, or at this point, after fiscal year 26. So what happened was MTC and transit agencies went to the state, asked legislators to help close that deficit. The state legislators agreed and provided enough funding to cover the agencies until 2026. But after that, BART, Golden Gate, Caltrain, WIDA is forget what WIDA is, and San Francisco MTA are going to face some major shortfalls. So as a result, there's been talk about regional transportation measures. So after this year, we have the housing bond measure. Hopefully that'll be successful. We started talking about a transit measure in 2026. Next slide, please. So and you may have heard it, it's been covered in the news. Senator Scott Wiener is the proposer of legislation. So we need enabling legislation to be able to do a regional measure similar to the housing measure for transportation. So he, I think, was mostly focused on how to close the gap for these transit agencies. And then Senator Aisha Wahab, who represents from Santa Clara County, had another piece of legislation that talked for consolidating all 27 transit agencies. And what happened was the Senate Pro Tem decided to combine the two bills and become one. So that's it's now Senate Bill 1031, and that's what is moving through the state legislature right now. So MTC was I guess the original author or sponsor of the bill, but we've had some challenges with this bill since the state legislators have decided to add their own flavor to it. These are for MTC, the areas that we wanted to fund. So over the last several years, we've been working on what we call the Bay Area Transit Transformation Action Plan, focusing on more customer-based initiatives. You might hear, I think actually this body passed the seamless transit measures a few years back. So this is very similar to that. Safe streets, it's very important. So safety becoming more and more important. Connectivity and climate resilience. So these are the 4 categories that we wanted to focus on. Next slide, please. So then what's happened is that as this bill has been moving through the legislature, what's being proposed is either a sales tax measure, and I believe there's one other option, but it's looking like it'll be a sales tax measure. And they're looking to raise, originally we're looking to raise about $1.5 billion a year for all 9 Bay Area counties. It's been capped now to a 1/2-cent sales tax measure, so that actually will only generate $1 billion. And so this is proposed challenges for Santa Clara County. And the BTA, and I know Vice Mayor here is on BTA with me, and Mayor Montano, we've discussed this, and we took a position at BTA to oppose the measure. I'm on Caltrain now, the Caltrain board now, and the Caltrain board also took a opposed, unless amended position. reason being for Santa Clara County, so there are 9 Bay Area counties. Out of the 9, actually 8 have sales tax measures of their own that are from transit in some way, some amount. We have always been a self-help county, so we have 4 sales tax measures right now on the books, and those 4 measures constitute almost 62% of our operating funds for VTA. 2016 Measure B was the most recent one that generates about $275 million a year. So I did a rough, just behind the envelope calculation. So Santa Clara County is the biggest county in the Bay Area. We actually have about 25% of the population in the Bay Area. And a lot of the funding formulas are based on population. So if we were just to base it on that, we would be generating, or we would expect to receive about $250 to $500 million a year on this $1 to $2 billion measure. But given what we have right now in Santa Clara County, it's actually more like $600 million that we will generate through our 4 sales tax measures. And all 4 of them are set to sunset within the 30 years that this regional measure would be in existence. And our sales tax bracket right now is at 9.13%. Some cities have a little bit higher. So add another half cent to that, we're getting close to 10%. And then if we had to go out to try to renew any of our 4 measures, it would be very difficult to do so. So that's really the, I would say, the main issue that we have at BTA. And then there's the other piece about consolidation. And it sounds, surface level, it sounds really attractive to think, oh, because everyone's like, oh, 27 transit agencies is too much, and you can't coordinate schedules and whatnot. And there is a lot of truth to that, but to consolidate 27 transit agencies is actually quite a lift. And interestingly, they've really been focusing on BART with Caltrain, and I think mainly because BART is in the deepest hole, frankly, although Caltrain also is experiencing a expected deficit. And so that effort alone would take years, and neither Caltrain, or at least Caltrain, is not interested in consolidation at this time. So 2 main reasons for why these 2 boards are not supporting this measure or legislation as it stands today. Could you go to the next slide, please? And this position may have, I think it might have been revised a bit, but I know a lot of folks have a lot of criticism about BTA. One thing that I've discovered is that our county faced fiscal cliff back in the early 2000s. And at that time, BTA cut their level of service. And BTA has not been able to return to that level, the pre-2000 level. And so BTA has had to make difficult decisions to maintain its fiscal sustainability. And frankly, right now, BTA is financially pretty secure. Their 10-year outlook is actually solvent. So of the 27 agencies, now that I've seen what's going on, I have to say BTA is doing a pretty good job, at least fiscally. And our interest is, of course, to expand service. And so, we have yet to get to 2000 levels. We've grown quite a bit as a county since then. So we really need more funding to be able to expand our service levels. And this regional measure will not do that for us. It's really to basically fill the gap, fill the holes that are of some agencies, and then maybe try to maintain what we have. But for Santa Clara County, it would actually take us backwards. So that's the position that BTA has taken, and Caltrain, because of the consolidation issue, has taken an opposed position. So you probably might have read some news articles about it. I don't know if you're starting to hear from community members. A lot of the transit advocates, Seamless and Friends of Caltrain are supportive of this legislation. But I think part of it is that there's just a lot more education that needs to happen and explanation of what our situation here in Santa Clara County is. And so that was really why it was important for us to take a position on this bill. I'm not sure where it is. It's been because of all of the challenges and concerns and the fact that Santa Clara County is 25% of the the Bay Area counties, for a regional measure to pass, it would have to pass in Santa Clara County. And at this time, because our county is not able to support it, I think the state legislatures are rethinking things. I'm not sure if it'll actually make it through the houses this year, but that's where we are on this. And I just wanted to just share this with all of you as you hear from your communities. And you might question, oh, why are we opposing it, here in Santa Clara County? This is because the other piece to this is the NTC piece. So part of a lot of this legislation also covers giving NTC a greater role and kind of becoming like the umbrella agency for the 27 transit agencies. And having been on NTC for 4 years, that again poses challenges to us in Santa Clara County. One is that the makeup of the board is based on population to some extent, but not really. So we have 3 representatives from Santa Clara County. But again, we're the largest with 2 million people. I think Alameda County comes in second, and San Francisco is the one that traditionally was a bigger city, I guess. But they also have 3 representatives for 800,000 people. So it's not based on population really. And so we don't have the voice that I think our county should be having. And the other piece to this is that in many of the other counties, the members, the commissioners have served for 20, 30 years because they don't have term limits. County supervisors in Alameda and so forth. So they work their way to leadership. And it's a very leadership, staff-driven organization. We're at a disadvantage here because we do have term limits. We've had Dave Cortese did serve as chair, but that's because he moved from one position to another. It's very hard for Santa Clara County to get to that leadership role. And so we're really at a disadvantage for the population that we serve. And so to have MTC take on a bigger role, to really start allocating the funds, and then there's repercussions if you don't follow some of the principles that they're laying out, it would really put us at a disadvantage. So that's the challenges that we're facing. So wanted to share that. Happy to answer any questions. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I'm very happy you were patient and brought this back. It's very informative. So let's open it up for questions, comments. Matthew, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks. Just learning about all of this, I guess it sounds like the focus of the idea to combine was really from an oversight perspective, not at an operational perspective. Is that correct?
I think the attempt is to consolidate to provide. I think the intent is to provide more efficiencies in the operations of these transit agencies. But that's where I think there's a disconnect. Where an MTC is actually more of a planning organization. They don't actually run transit agencies or run transit. And then the 27 agencies, they all have like different ways of running. Some are bus, some are rail. Santa Clara County does both at BTA. So those are some of the challenges that would be faced if it were to consolidate.
Yeah, because it seemed to me that maybe if there were a benefit, it would be at consolidation and elimination of redundancy in operations, because 27 is a lot. And you compare, like to New York or Chicago, where you have much bigger agencies. And so I'm wondering, if this ever moves forward, it would seem like maybe to do some analysis of what kind of efficiencies could get gained, you know, there, not just from an oversight, but at an operational level, because that could be substantial.
And yeah, I think there is room for consolidation, and this legislation called for a study. There have been studies that have been conducted in the past, but it's a question of what you would consolidate first. And I mean, actually, there are 3 bus agencies in like Solano County. So if you ask me, those could be consolidated, but it's just very political. And for whatever reason, BART and Caltrain were the focus. Then they did some polling for the revenue measure, and when they talked about consolidation, what actually rose to the top was consolidating bus systems. And yet MTC, the leadership focus has been on BART Caltrain. And so there's this political disconnect from what's just purely, you know, makes operational sense. And those are the challenges that make this very difficult to do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Comments, questions, Javed?
I'm just curious, I mean, this is 5 billion now, which will give us another 3 or 4 years, 5 years, and then another 5 billion. Is something to take out of the box? I mean, do we need all those buses? Can we just eliminate all the bus related items, maybe the Caltrain and the light rail, and go to a Uber type model, which may service more people? Have there been any studies done as to what it costs per mile under the present system and what it would cost under an Uber type system? Because I mean, you know, people are not taking buses and trains because it's just inconvenient. Everybody, you know, we still come to Los Altos in our car and look for.
We're working on the trade.
Has any real serious study been done on it and just say, get rid of all the, you know, VTA related administration, except maybe the Caltrain makes some sense. The light rail makes some sense, but you know, just go to a Uber type model per mile and compare the two, see what the costs are.
I don't know if there has been a study. I'd have to look into that. I would say some of the, you know, the issues that come up though for an Uber type model, I guess if you made them all electric vehicles, okay, that helps, but like transit and the buses and, you know, Caltrain is being electrified, so it is a much more environmentally sound system to have public transit. And right, even with Uber, you know, that's just that many more single occupancy vehicles, or I guess you could put a few in there, but to move there's just the sheer numbers of people, you really need that mass transit. You know, my position, having done this for 16 years now, is that we're just seriously underserviced, and our service levels are too low. We have headways of 20, 30, sometimes 1 hour. And, you know, I've traveled to other places, went to college in Boston, and you have headways of 5-6 minutes. And I think that I would take 10-minute headways. If we could get to that level, I think we would start seeing more people riding transit. And there is the plan, VTA recently put out like a strategic plan. And I believe it's like another $70 to $80 million it would take to get us to 10 to 15-minute headways. And so that's my hope, is that we can move towards that and figure out, you know, it's not a lot of money, frankly, when we're talking about billions of dollars, but for that extra 75 million, if we can provide those, you know, that kind of frequency, I think we would see more ridership.
And on that note, I'm gonna close the item because we're trying to stay on schedule. But you know, just action item, as we do with all our items, figure out whether or not LAC wants to take this up, or even the board to take a position. And we could look into the different Santa Clara County representatives who have come out opposing it. I'm curious about that as well. But thanks, Margaret, really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. All right, next, and it's actually a good segue to our next speaker. Do we have any public comment on item 3? No. Agenda item 4, resources and programs for older adults, and our speaker, Tyler Taylor, I see that he has some experience in the transportation arena. And as you know, older adults, thanks to Matthew's advocacy with Steve as well from the county, we made it one of our priorities this year. And as we do with all our priorities, we bring forward at least one item of discussion for us to see how as cities we can tackle, help address whatever the priority is. And so we're fortunate to have Tyler Taylor, who's Executive Director of Successful Aging Solutions and Community Consulting. And Tyler, as I read your bio, you can make your way to the podium, you can grab a seat next to the mayors over there, whatever works, you can stand in front of us. And he's based out of Saratoga. He's also the founder and operator of the RIDE Senior Transportation Program, executive editor and publisher of the Outlook Community newspaper, and former chair of the Santa Clara County Senior Care Commission. Tyler serves on the board of directors for Los Gatos Public Media and KCAP 15 TV in Los Gatos, as well as on the UC Irvine CX Certificate Program Advisory Board and Institutional Effectiveness Committee at West Valley College. Thank you for being here, Tyler. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It's very nice to be here today and to address the group. As I was introduced, I was really listening to the presentation by Margaret. Our organization, we have several operations. We are a direct services provider as well as a community consultancy. Our direct services consist of operating the Saratoga Senior Center, the Saratoga Adult Care Center, which is a licensed care facility. We also, again, the RIDE Senior Transportation Program and a community newspaper called The Outlook. The Outlook goes to 30,000 homes every month in our service area, every single home in Los Gatos and Saratoga. So we have a pretty wide distribution with that. The RIDE program is actually a recipient of Measure B funding as well as MTC funding through the 5310 and Mobility Management and Operating Assistance Grant. So we have had to navigate some of these systems. The RIDE Senior Transportation Program was really launched because of bus cuts that took place in the West Valley that disproportionately affected older adults. And we had a problem getting people to the senior center from their homes. Folks who could no longer drive or chose not to drive for safety reasons needed an option. And so RIDE is curb to curb, and we do about 12,000 rides per year. We cover Saratoga, Los Gatos, Montecito, Cupertino, Campbell, Morgan Hill, and select zip codes in San Jose. The Measure B funding allowed us to expand, as did the MTC 5310 funding. They are complex funding streams, but all of the cities that helped us launch the program really were part of that success. And we're just seeing more growth and more demand in that program. One of the best features of it, and we often get a lot of questions about the comparisons to Uber or Lyft. We don't have an app that folks have to use currently. We are planning one in development. As we all get older, we'll have different capabilities and skill sets. But the current crop of people that we see are average age is about 78 years old. And so they pick up the phone and call, and we send a trained driver trained on issues that pertain to senior services. They know all of the county resources that are social services that they can be plugged into, and they often get the same driver. And so they build that rapport and that relationship with their passengers to where the trust is built, and they can refer them to services that they might need that they otherwise wouldn't know how to seek or get access to. So we try not to call it case management on wheels because case management is a real thing, but there is an element to that as time passes in our program. And so what we've done in the community consulting realm is we have done a lot of research. We use a survey tool, which I'll talk a little bit more about in my presentation, called the Community Assessment Survey for Older Adults. Some of you here may be familiar with it. Some of your communities may have used it in the past. CASCC has conducted, we call it CASOA for short, the shorter name. The CASOA we've conducted for the town of Los Gatos, the city of Saratoga, the city of Santa Clara, and we're currently finalizing our CASOA for the city of Campbell. And those mirror a community college district, the West Valley Mission Community College District, which is a part of my presentation today. But that information has really put us at the table and at the seat with communities that are trying to develop the path forward for an aging population and to figure out how to prepare institutional strength as well as community-based services that may be lacking currently, how to forecast for those, how to roadmap for those, and how to get folks to use those services in a streamlined way. And so we figured that we were at the table quite a bit. And so we also have a need as a nonprofit to create sustainable lines of revenue. All of you are familiar with folks coming in and requesting money from your cities in support of nonprofit organizations that have limited funds and limited resources. We're no different, but we wanted to try to find a way that we could reduce our ask of our community partners, especially in tough budget times. And so in coming here today, I know that I was going to have some asks for you. Money will not be one of them. So I figured that might, make it a little bit of a warmer audience. But what I would like, and hopefully I'll get, is your curiosity, your thought leadership, and potentially your partnership as, we explore the issues for today. So I'm here to talk about navigating the intersection of aging, education, and workforce development. We are an aging population. Economic experts are forecasting what the needs will be and what the labor market will look like in the future and now. We also have, besides an aging workforce, we have an industry of aging services that needs new skilled workers. Folks that will need jobs, they need training for those jobs, and they also need career pathways. Traditionally, when folks think of the caregiving industry, a lot of people think of it as a dead-end job, as a place that they can, kind of go, get burnt out and start to experience really no upward mobility. And so we have the opportunity to create pathways for that. I'm a great example. People in my organization are a great example. The aging services sector is a booming sector, and there is a lot of money there. And so how do we create pathways for people to have them see the promise in a career in that field? And so we have a longstanding history with West Valley College. We're right across the street from the college. And so we've had a decades-long relationship with them. In the past 10 years, that relationship has really blossomed. In 2018, we worked with West Valley College to get them designated as the nation's first age-friendly community college campus. All 15 cities here are age-friendly communities, and so you've all done the work to prepare your communities in some meaningful way. West Valley College took an extra step to really welcome older adults onto the campus, and that started a process over the last 5 or 6 years. The president at the time, who is now the chancellor, Bradley Davis, and I worked very closely together to design an innovative first-in-the-nation project called Senior Guided Pathways. So go to this slide here. It's a partnership, innovative partnership with CASCC and the Community College District. And again, it's navigating the intersection of education, aging, and workforce development. And so the pillars of the program are really based around providing lifelong learning opportunities as well as skill building opportunities for people who are age 50 plus. We also want to create new certificate programs for people who want to get into the caregiving or aging services sector so they have career mobility. And the college has also dedicated a building. They have a $75 million wellness center that they're building that will be designated as a center for aging. And so we're looking at putting aging in the infrastructure of DEI. As we all know, the colleges and universities have a very well-built infrastructure for DEI, but aging is left out. And it's one of those things, one of those isms that, universally applies to all of us. A lot of people, when you talk about aging, they say, oh, them. But it's really all of us, if we're lucky. We don't want the alternative. So we would like to get older, but we'd like to get older successfully and have some brighter prospects. The community colleges are really uniquely positioned for that. So the next slide here, it talks a little bit about our pillars. We use data collection through the community assessment survey. It is gold standard because it's statistically valid, scientifically conducted, and it's nationally benchmarked. It has a wonderful online platform where we can do cross-chatting and you can really get drilled down into the data and have a evidence backing for the decisions that we make when it comes to programs and services, or even when it comes to class selections that we put together for our pathway bundles. We reduce barriers. We use the transportation program RIDE. Anyone in that program who's enrolled as a student in our pilot will be able to get transportation to and from the campus at no cost if they need it. They also get transportation on campus from, if they have mobility limitations, from the parking lot to the classroom and back. So they don't have to navigate some of the sprawling, beautiful campuses that we have. They can do that safely. We look at curricular alignment. We use our assessment data to build skill building coursework for both life and work, as well as certificate programs. And then again, the societal impact using the DEI infrastructure to tackle ageism and workplace equity. This is a little small on this screen, but the community assessment survey, again, we've totaled so far, surveyed over 11,000 homes. We have about a 21% response rate with a margin of error about less than 4%. And the interesting thing here is the reported employment prospects here for older adults. The community's overall rated at 28 out of 100. And what that means is people over the age of 60 don't feel like there are good employment opportunities as we get older. I spent a lot of time working with some economic experts. I spent some time with the chief recruiter or the chief economist of ZipRecruiter, Julia Pollack, and they've done extensive research into people over the age of 50 and what their job prospects are. In that category, half of the people who lose their job after 50 don't get another job that's comparable. And it becomes tough. And what becomes tough is ironically, is your work history. You've done a job for 20 years, you've done a fantastic job for 20 years, but you don't have modern training and modern skills. You rate a little bit lower on that hiring prospect. There's ageism and stereotypes involved, but that modern day training or that more recent training is a key factor, and that's what a lot of people don't have. Finances obviously are directly impacted by that as well. This chart on the right, number 24, basically what that says is that 42% of respondents plan to work for money into their 70s. That's an astonishing number when we looked at it. Into their 70s, people are planning to work for a living wage. And then at the bottom, this is a problem statement. And 31% of people say that building skills for work, either paid or unpaid, is a problem for them, having the opportunity, or finding work in retirement, 30% nearly having a problem with that. And we can break that down by age brackets. We can break it down by income, by living alone or living with others. There's a lot of different segmentation that we can do with the data. So that's how we kind of use it and determine what we'll do in next steps. Again, this is RIDE. I won't spend too much time about this because I covered it a little bit already, but we use this program and all of its features to get people to and from and to plug folks into to other services that they might need. We'll go to the next slide. Now, the model that we've employed in order to, asking people in their later years to go back to community college is a tough sell, okay? And so we realize that it can be. And so how do we make it easier? Community colleges themselves are facing a steep enrollment decline. I'm sure many of you have kind of heard that. And this is in part a technique in helping the community college system look at this population as a room for growth in their enrollment numbers. So for our current model, what we're doing is senior center dual enrollment. All of your cities have a senior center. Most of them are run by a city department. It's part of your Parks and Rec. Some communities have an outsourced model like Saratoga, like Palo Alto. And so as a feature of membership at CASCC, every one of our members actually automatically becomes registered as a student at either West Valley College or at Mission College. And we do that in partnership with them. Our staff and volunteers are trained by the College Admissions and Records Office. We actually hired someone who used to work in admissions and records at CASCC to help people with that process. So we reduced that technological barrier. In the reshaping of the community college landscape that they have done on their own, they identified one of the biggest hurdles to success for their students as being navigating their systems. So it's universally troublesome. It's not just for older adults. Younger people have the same problems. But we are uniquely positioned to help in that regard. And so we do that as a feature of membership. So when they get their membership, they become a student. Now, that doesn't mean they take a class automatically, but starting to take classes is that much easier when you're already enrolled. The tuition is free. West Valley Mission has legislation and has done other things to offer free tuition for folks that live in their service area. So that part is taken care of. And it also increases grant funding opportunities for senior centers because now you can, pitch that you have this program that takes down technological barriers. You can get money for the access to technology grant, or you can be competitive for certain grants that are out there. We've also developed a student success coaching program. The community colleges really want to increase their presence at the high school, but they are confined with what they can do. They're in a competitive environment. They have universities and other folks that also target those same students. But CASCC and community-based organizations are a little bit more free to move around the campus, creating volunteer opportunities for younger students. And so we do have strong relationships with high schools in our service area, and we have a student success coaching program. So one of the opportunities that students can take is to learn how to register older adults for community college, thereby learning the system themselves and learning how to navigate those systems and kind of becoming subject matter experts, so that if they choose to go to the community college route, they're very familiar with the system and know how to do it. And they also get exposure to a fantastic system. Community colleges are great. They have a lot of benefits, and a lot of people in our area may not necessarily be familiar with them. So they get that exposure. Slide, please. Again, small text, sorry about that. These are some of the classes. And so at West Valley College and Mission College, what we did in our pilot phase, we're in the first year of the pilot. We looked at their existing catalog. We took our data that we collected from the Community Assessment Survey, and we bundled classes into 5 or 6 course groups that they can take, and at the end of which they'll receive a certificate of completion that's signed by the college president, the chancellor, and our organization. And so I'll pull out this one here, the workforce skill building. This actual track gives you 2 certificates that are applicable in the workplace. You take communication skills and leadership, as well as MS Office Basics. You learn communications for the workplace, digital skills for the workplace, technical skills such as Microsoft PowerPoint, Advanced Excel, Intro to Google Workspace, tools that people may be familiar with but don't have that actual technical training on. You can get a certificate, and it's hours-based as opposed to credit-based, so it's an easy barrier to get past. And so we've put those together. But then there's another one that has kind of risen to the top of the data in terms of people navigating healthcare systems. As we get older, we have more contact with the healthcare system. A lot of people call us when they just kind of hit the wall, or when their family member is, dealing with something. And so we want to try to prepare ourselves and future generations to learn some skills in how to navigate these systems. So we bundled up Introduction to Healthcare, Basic Medical Terminology, First Aid and CPR and AED, Contemporary Health, and Elder Law, skills that people can use in their everyday lives to make their lives easier. So essentially, we took what they already had, we reshaped it, repackaged it, and followed it up from the surveying so that we can show that we were demand responsive to the community. But the real exciting work is happening behind the scenes for years 2 and 3 of the pilot, where we will create new curriculum. We will use what we've learned from our survey data, as well as for the pilot cohorts that are in the program, to shape new curriculum, new certificate programs, and really meet the needs of the population. Next, please. So why and why now? These are some statistics at the bottom that, you hear statistics all the time, so I won't bore you too much with it. The real answer about why and why now is because it needs to happen. There's sometimes sitting around having meetings for the sake of having meetings. You learn a lot, but not a lot gets done. And we have the opportunity now to use the infrastructure that the community colleges represent, help them rebrand and reshape, targeting a new population base that so far has kind of been left out of the conversation, bring the intergenerational features that are inherent to the community college to the forefront, and have them serve as the community centers that they are. So this is really first of its kind. I've been speaking all around. I spoke at the C4A last week, the California Association of Area Agencies on Aging, and the response that we got was incredible. Most of the programs that are talking about an aging workforce are on the employer side. What can employers do to reduce ageism in the hiring process and their hiring managers, creating pathways at work and so on. But there isn't anything so far that we found that's community-based that utilizes existing systems and puts things in a new light. So we look forward to working with all of your cities. The test model is going to be West Valley Mission Community College District, but we want to see this applicable to other communities. We're in talks with Foothill De Anza as well as San Jose City Evergreen right now. They're taking a very serious look at this program. So I know that you all's schedule is very packed. I hope to one day see you all again, but I do plan on coming to each one of your cities and hopefully speaking at a council meeting or commission meeting, whatever you would have me do. So that's kind of my ask, is just maybe leave the door open for me and my team to come and educate your communities more about what we're doing. Thank you.
No, thank you, Tyler. And I'll just say, we all know 50 is the new 40. So there's a two-part to this agenda item. We also have our source-wise representative. So Tyler, there will be questions.
Okay.
But I do want to bring in Matthew as our source-wise representative to give us an update about the work they're doing at source-wise in and for our cities.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this program that Tyler is speaking about and the ability to actually train caregivers and people to help with our aging population is so innovative. And this automatic enrollment is really something that we need to get the word out, that people are automatically enrolled at no cost in these wonderful community colleges. So that's awesome. And Tyler didn't put it on his resume, but he's been very generous in advising our Los Gatos Thrives Foundation and bringing a lot of ideas to our community. So thanks. Source-wise, how many people are very familiar with Source-wise and what it is? Okay. I am really just learning about it. Source-wise, I thought it was some kind of a paper supply company or something like that. But I got interested in it when I learned that it was about older adults, and it's been around for 50 years. It was created by the federal government through an act in 1965 and got started here in 1973. It consists of a board and executive director, and they have locations in a couple of areas here in Santa Clara, Morgan Hill. But also it has an advisory board of 35 people that draw from all kinds of demographics and populations. And it's a very diverse board that is guiding this. And so I'm pleased to have been appointed to it this year. And I'm really just learning. I only attended one meeting so far, but what it's really an incredible organization. So what do? They provide some basic things like meals, nutrition, Meals on Wheels, as well as meals served in a location that also provides a social setting that goes along with the meals. They provide some case management services, which is funded through Medicaid, but it provides an assessment of where a person is at, gets an individual care plan for them, and then makes arrangements for services for these individuals. And this is done on a one-on-one basis through case management. They also provide legal services, and a couple other things that I think are really important is running adult daycare, particularly for folks with mental impairment and memory issues. And so it's a wonderful service to have, so that if there is another partner in the relationship who isn't as impaired, they can have a productive engagement. And some of them go on to be much more productive because there's now a service that their partner can participate in, and family caregiver support as well. So it's, I'm just learning about it. I'm sure it has significant funding issues, but it's also a matter of getting the word out about the ability of what they can do. So that's the overview. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Matthew. It's great hearing the different things we're doing for older adults in Santa Clara County and how as cities we can take advantage of them. So opening up for questions, comments to either Tyler or Matthew.
If I could get your contact information?
Sure.
I can send that around to everyone. I
Okay.
can email summary of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely do that.
Thank you.
So the vehicles for the RIDE program are personal vehicles? Are they vehicles that your organization's purchased? concept of EVs and, you know, how green are they is always comes up as questions. And then based upon the cost to the participant in the program, you talk about income and distance. And so income is how do the members prove their income to you? So.
Thank you for the question. So the vehicles, they're a mixture of, for our volunteers, they use their own vehicles. We have a vehicle inspection policy, so our team will inspect every vehicle that is in the program. For our paid drivers, CASCC owns 4 vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and so that's what we use for the majority of our transportation and our rides. In terms of income and the cost per trip, roughly 85% of the people in our program are at the extremely low income category. And so they take a round trip anywhere they want to go in our service area for less than $2. And so it's affordable. They can get where they need to go as often as they'd like to go. At the higher end, one-way trip, 4 miles or less is $9. And so that's if someone is completely self-sufficient and does not, and we use the HUD guidelines for measuring the income. And they substantiate that we go by income, not assets. And so we just basically go by what they live off of. And they work with our admissions team and our coordination team to substantiate that through documentation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just to follow up on that, and how much does it cost you per mile?
Does it cost us? Well, we do a cost per trip. It's about $21 per trip. And so our cost per ride is pretty high. It is a fully subsidized program. We make no money, basically. We collect about $1,500 a year in fees from the program to the passengers. So it is a fully subsidized program. And that's why we need the support from the MTC and from the Measure Bs. But with our new program with the community colleges, the expansion of RIDE to new communities is actually helped in the subsidization by the community college districts themselves. They have an interest in getting students in the door, and so they help us out with the expansion.
Thank you. And just quick question. So Cedars, for example, in Los Altos, how can they take advantage of the community college courses? Because that's the type of information we would want to be able to share with our seniors.
So there is not a program that serves the Foothill De Anza Community College District yet, but we are in talks with their people right now, and so we would like to see that happen in 25, 26.
And I joked earlier about 50 is the new 40, but how do you define the age for seniors or older adults as part of your program?
You know, it all depends. It depends on the funding source. It depends on who's defining it. The Older Americans Act is 65 and older is considered to be an older adult or a senior. A lot of programs that you'll see are 55 plus. But at the same time, I was talking to an 85-year-old gentleman the other day, and I asked him why he doesn't come to the senior center. He said, that's because that's where all the old people are. You know.
And then just one last question, Tyler, and thank you so much for being here. The rideshare program, if there's no app, how do they schedule the ride? And I'm asking because Los Altos is actually looking at our rideshare program that we have for seniors, and we're looking at different models. So if they don't have an app, like how do they schedule the rides? Is it a phone call?
A phone call or email. So they can do either, but we're in development for an app right now. And we'll put it into the mix and see how it tests with our folks. The people who would use an app in the client base that we currently have are the adult children of the client. And so that's kind of who we're targeting right now. But it's not like what a lot of cities are looking at right now, which is the shuttle, model where they'll have a bus or a multi, unit vehicle come and pick folks up. There's a little bit more of an intimate relationship between the driver and the passenger where we get to know each other and we plug people into services that they might need to help kind of spread the resources out.
Well, thank you.
A quick question.
Yep, last question from Shadi.
How many older adults do you have actually enrolled in taking classes in the senior guided pathways?
Right now, we have 85 people enrolled in the Senior Guided Pathways, but the enrollment levels are at about 250 folks taking a la carte classes. So we have kind of two models. We have the cohort model and then a la carte. Some folks don't want to take the whole suite. They just want to take a few classes here and there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment, we do have a question or comment from our county representative.
And even I'm not sure which one it's gonna be. No. I was really interested in this topic because, again, I think Tyler covered all the points. We're all having aging populations in our cities and in the unincorporated areas. SourceWise provides great services. CASCC provides great services, and I think a model that could be adopted throughout the county. As I understand it, the number of folks, of seniors that are eligible for these services and the number of folks that have access are two big disparities. So getting the word out is really critical, and I think SourceWise, Unlock, and CASCC, their newsletter and all that, they do a great job. But I think that's where every city can play a role in terms of your senior centers and outreach and working with the county, which is something the Board of Supervisors is really committed to do, in part dealing with mental health issues and senior suicides and all that. So I think there's a lot of room here for collaboration. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve, and we'll talk about the mental health piece when we get to the June 13th event.
If I could just say one last thing, I just wanted to thank all of you for making senior services and aging a priority for your group. It means a lot to the folks that do this work, and you're doing yourself a favor too.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you so much. Next up, we will have our attorney do our JPA update, and it's also a discussion and possible action on our bylaws that we've all been working on for a long time now. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jenny to lead this item.
Okay, well, I thought we'd start with the conflict of interest code. Andrew drafted the conflict of interest code and worked closely with county council in Santa Clara County Council, who provided a lot of guidance, what needed to be in the code, and kind of streamlined it so that we can have them take over the custody of the first Form 700s that we filed, and then also help us set up electronic filing for next year. So is it more helpful if I go through what's in the conflict of interest code? Or does anybody have any questions about that? So it should be pretty, it contains all the requirements that are in the Political Reform Act. And what it does is it establishes basically what positions, as a member of the board of directors, each of you are in the broadest disclosure category. And I think the biggest difference that you'll see is that you will need to disclose certain things outside the jurisdiction that you do in your council forms. So Andrew provided the example, if you own property in San Jose, maybe you don't disclose that on your council form 700 because not doing business in your jurisdiction doesn't impact it. So I think you'll see a little broader disclosure requirements. And then luckily, Charlie and Andrew and I are in the second category because we're consultants. So, and then the alternate members of the board of directors will also need to do that. Assuming that you adopt a resolution adopting a conflict of interest code, and we try to make it as simple as possible. And that's really the primary purpose, to designate which category you fall in. Then the county, actually, the board of supervisors approves it, and then they become responsible for handling all of our problems.
Questions, comments on the conflict code? Do you want to do an action?
Sure, let's start it. So if
So no questions, no comments? Public comment? Oh, sure, go ahead.
When do we have to do it next? Is it for next year, 2025?
Filing.
yes, it would be 2025.
So what's the difference between our 700 form that we fill out and this one that you're talking about?
The main difference is that the jurisdiction of the cities association is the entirety of Santa Clara County, where the one that you filed for Milpitas, for example, is strictly, it relates to your role in Milpitas and Milpitas. So you could have some additional things that you would disclose on your Form 700 when you file it with respect to the cities association.
And this lays it out.
Very, very quick. So you said we don't have to file until next year. However, normally, we've already filed as kind of assuming on the JPA. That being said, if we, based upon this, wouldn't we have to amend or refile for joining this JPA?
No, you filed for the JPA.
Correct.
The form that you
But
filed
we filed based upon, and not assuming that we are much like our cities, or our existing 700s within our jurisdictions. We didn't consider, and I've never thought, maybe it doesn't affect anyone, but is there the
Right, I see what
concept
you're
that,
saying.
that any of us, if any of us had the example that you had, that we had, we're
You're gonna need to.
property
review-
outside of our jurisdiction, would we need to refile?
Yes.
Or amend?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes.
There you go.
And
So whose responsibility is it to do an amendment? Do an amendment? Cause I fall under that category, that it's. The form that I filed initially this year is not broad enough.
Yes, it would be the individual's responsibility, and then we can, check with, and I can get back to everyone on whether that's gonna be something that we can do electronically, or you'll do another paper one.
Okay.
And then perhaps, we haven't filed, right now, the custodian of our records is Shawley. And so if you amend it, it might be worthwhile to amend now, because she keeps those forms and nobody else reviews those forms, right? So you could, it'd be easy to amend before we turn everything over. And we can make sure that we have enough time to do that. They're trying to get it on their board agenda by May. So I don't think we would turn these over. It'll take a while to get that all set up and organized. But you-
I saw a hand over here. Is it Kathy or Mark? Neither? Okay.
I raised your hand to you.
Oh, there was something fishy. And that's why, to Larry and Ann's questions, having this code approved and adopted by the board, then it lays out the guidelines, so we know what our amendment should look like. And I like, Janie's suggestion about, to the extent you can do the paper amendment and give it to Shali, because the county is going to take it over for next year and we'll be able to hopefully file electronically, but we actually don't know when that's gonna happen. So if you can, look at the conflict code, see if you need to do any amendments, and then work with Shali.
And the county's asked us very specifically to provide them with the paper copies. And the other thing I would like to just point out, that I did ask the very pointed question about whether it was necessary we even filed the Form 700s for this organization, and I was told, yes, we do need them, but I thought you might appreciate that I asked.
Okay, so what action do you need from us for the code?
A motion to adopt the resolution adopting a conflict of interest code for the Santa Clara County Cities Association Joint Powers Agency.
So moved?
I'm sorry, who moved?
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Larry. And then we could just do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next, we'll move to the bylaw.
Okay. So we took into consideration, we collated all of the input and then reviewed the input, in order of the bylaws for the unincorporated association, and presented it to the executive committee. And based on the direction of the executive committee, we drafted the bylaws that are presented to you this evening. And perhaps it might be helpful if I walk through what the changes were and why some of those changes were made. So the first and foremost thing, was really.
Sorry to interrupt. As we go through each change, I'm going to pause to see if anybody has comments or questions, and then move to the next one.
Perfect, because I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna. take
Yes,
notes
so
on
let's do it this
Perfect.
way. So first section that has a change.
Okay, so just generally, the guiding principle was that the JPA, that the bylaws need to be consistent with the JPA. So we made a number of updates to the bylaw so that the nomenclature would be consistent, and we really tried to make sure that we don't have two duplicative documents. Why repeat everything? Why create any confusion? There was also a suggestion that even to differentiate the documents, meaning the joint powers agreement from the bylaws, why don't we call everything in the joint powers agreement? Well, it'll stay article, but when we get to the bylaws, what you see says article, but I think we'll change all of our suggestion is that we change each section to be a section. So it'll be section 1, section 2. So you'll know if you see a section, you're looking at the bylaws. If you see article, you're looking at the actual JPA. And then there were some interesting aspects that were in the JPA that carried through, and we'll talk about those as we make our way through each item. Section 1, the purpose. And I don't know if Charlotte can put them up.
I'll put up, is it, the red line?
There's some, I think, more cleanup in what will now be section 1, restating the purpose and the principal place of business and removing a lot of the repetitive items that we had in the JPA. And Charlie, if you scroll down, you can just see we had restated the purpose, taking it right out of the JPA. So that seemed to be kind of overkill, and we could streamline this document.
Any questions on section 1?
Yeah, not on the section itself, but I like the idea of calling these sections. If that's the case, at the top it says section 1, and then what is reading as section 1 right now, would you call it section 1.1, and then section 2 would be 1.2?
Yeah.
I just wanted that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, next section.
Section 2 has to do with membership, and there were a number of comments requesting clarification regarding the potential for associate members to this group. So we tried to put some language in there that would address and clarify. And there would always be, if there is ever an associate member, it would requires the approval of the board, which would be by majority vote. It would also require an agreement. So an agreement would have to be drafted and presented to the board. And I think there's where you're really going to get the specificity about what is the benefit of being an associate member and what are the requirements to be an associate member. But we tried to put some more details into this part of the bylaws.
Any questions on this section?
And then the section 3 about the board of directors, there were no substantive changes really requested to this section. We received more than one comment on the point that the city managers are not an advisory committee, but they are advisors to this organization. So we made that change under board of directors.
Any questions on this section?
The next section is section 4 about the officers, and we made a number of edits to this section. For example, there is there have been circumstances in the past, and there is currently one, where you have an elected official who is not on the board member but serves as our treasurer. So we clarified the language in the bylaws to allow that to occur. We also updated the duties of the officers with what the current practice is, what's required under the joint exercise of powers law, and also what's consistent with the JPA agreement. We confirmed again that the executive director and your lawyers are independent contractors and not employees. And then we also made a change to the nominating committee in response to a request. So there are always 3 members on the nominating committee, and the way that the language is presented in this proposed bylaws is that 1 member of the nominating committee will be from the executive board and 1 member will be from the board in general. And that leaves the 3rd member to the discretion of the president. But there will always be a guarantee that there will be somebody outside the executive committee who's on the nominating committee.
Any questions on that change? Okay, thanks, Anne.
Okay, the next section has to do with meetings, and we had some minor revisions just to update with what the Brown Act says. Instead of 3 days, it says 72 hours. It was that type of a change. clarifying that, and that was actually pointed out by a couple of lawyers, and not Andrew. It was read by other people. We also clarified the thresholds. I think you might need to scroll down just a little bit, the thresholds on voting. And I think this is gonna be, this would be of interest to understand where this came from. So in the actual JPA, it said, in the JPA agreement, it states that the vote, a majority vote is required. And it also says that it's a majority of those present and voting. And so I think the voting is an issue that you may want to discuss this evening, but I just wanted to point that out. In the JPA agreement, there are also 3 different occasions where you need a 2/3 vote. That's the significant program of over $10,000. It is when you want to remove a board member and when you want to terminate the JPA, I believe is the 3rd one. So we updated the bylaws in that respect.
Because of course, the JPA is the governing document. If there's a conflict, the JPA supersedes.
Correct.
Any questions on this section?
Yeah, the 2/3 requirement, is that of members present or total?
In those 3 situations where we require supermajority.
Termination is 2/3 of the members.
Of members of the board that are present?
Removal is 2/3 majority vote of the entire board.
I feel like for big decisions.
But then how do you vote that? I mean,
And then significant program is 2/3 vote of the members.
So for
but
these,
if there was to be an action to take, one of those actions to be taken, how do you then vote without being at a meeting and having everybody present? And
So
how do you
it's-
incorporate the person that's not there in the voting?
well, if, let's say only 13 members show up and all 13 vote in favor of the action, even though there was 1 absent, that's still 2. You just need to make sure the number of votes at the meeting is 2/3 of the board. Everybody doesn't, you got it.
So it's not unanimous, it's 2/3.
It's 2/3.
So Lisa, versus, I just want to emphasize again, because we discussed it in the exec committee, versus the regular, any action like right now,
Right.
there are 14 members of the board. So if 8 is quorum to have a meeting, that means 5 can take a decision. I'm not talking super majority. I'm just trying to differentiate between.
If only 8 people were there, a majority vote would be 5. But if
Okay.
14 people are there.
But 8 being quorum can take an action, and therefore only 5 can approve an item, unless it's one of the super majority things.
So if on the super majority, on the 2/3, it would always be 2/3 of the total.
Number of board members, yes, regardless of how many are in attendance.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to highlight in terms of number of votes there.
And should that be in writing so that it's understood or?
So it is, but I know Jenny, if we need to clarify it more, she will, but it is. We actually make that distinction for those 3 scenarios where we require supermajority.
In the joint powers agreement.
The JPA says 2/3 of the members. Versus when it's the simple majority, we talk about any other votes for the board, then it's simple majority of quorum.
And then as we move through this document, there is one time in particular where we talk about the 2/3 versus majority that's coming up.
Next section, committees.
Okay, so we made some changes here, to tie, one of the suggestions, I do really want to give a shout out to the city attorney for Santa Clara, who went through this document with a fine tooth comb and really had some good suggestions. And one was, where can you reference back to the joint powers agreement? So we added some references throughout the bylaws so that it's easy if you want to see where does this authority come from. So we've added those. Then we spent some time on the legislative action committee provision to try and address some of the questions and concerns about that. And Charlie, I know you're over there, but if you could lift the So I can show where it had some interesting provisions, and these date back, these are, I think they're 20 years old.
You're dating us. Or well,
Myself, I'm also dating myself, but I listened very carefully to Tyler, so it's much better. So it had the three purposes why LAC exists. And so we did some wordsmithing at the direction of the executive committee to kind of make that a little clearer, and also point out that LAC is an advisory committee. It advises the board. So it's the board that's going to take action. So we built in a little bit about what the process is. So if the board accepts a recommendation, the chair of the committee will transmit the agency's position. We thought that was a worthwhile clarification. And also, there was a question about what did it really mean, the third purpose of LAC? What did it mean that it could organize emergency responses to urgent issues? So we tried to qualify that somewhat and say that it's emergency responses to legislative issues, since it is the Legislative Action Committee, and that only if it was consistent with prior decisions that have already been made by the board of directors, to tie that back to what's been authorized. So there would be some, to lessen any concern that the LAC committee might do something that wasn't approved by the board. Checks and balances, exactly. And then also, I think there's some clarification in the beginning about the membership, that the representative of a member city who serves on the board of directors may also serve as the LAC committee. So you could have one person in both roles.
Any questions on the committee changes?
And then I just do want to highlight too, for city selection committee, we really tied that back to what the state law requires, and we will be drafting we are required by state law to draft their own rules and procedures that would be presented to the city selection committee at their next meeting.
Next section.
And then other committees authorized, this goes back perhaps to the concept of a working committee, and the joint powers agreement authorizes a working committee to be created at any time. So we didn't modify the language here to specifically create a working committee. I think that's all the committees.
Next, finances.
Finances, so we tightened up finances a little bit. One is the first thing is that the budget process is set forth in the joint powers agreement, that you will adopt a budget by April 30th of each year. So we tied it to that. And then we felt it was important, because of this 2/3 vote for a significant program, understanding how a significant program could be created in the context of budget adoption, that you couldn't just adopt a budget by a majority vote and create a significant program. So we called out very specifically that regardless of when you do a significant program, it will always take a 2/3 vote. If it was being done as part of a budget process, we'd simply take the significant program as a separate item first, vote on it, and then you could vote on the budget after that.
Anything else in the finances section of substance?
There was a request that the dues formula.
Question from Javed.
The budget is going to go out on April 30th, or be approved on or before 30th, but the cities are supposed to pay the dues also by April 30th?
Yeah,
Am I reading it right?
the dues by, they'll be as part of the budget every April 30th. And so there was a request that the dues formula be included in the bylaws. And so the direction was not to include it in the bylaws, but it is part of the budget. It isn't that the dues are just created by, well, the board decides what the dues are going to be, and they're going to decide what the dues are as a part of the budget. So that language was put in there. And then they're due and payable before July 1st of each year.
Oh, we actually moved up the date, Javed. So this is better for us. It is. Before, we gave ourselves till June to finalize our budget, when in practice, we're finalizing our budget in April. So by putting it here that it's April, this gives our cities enough time to build in the dues into our June budget.
Well, I don't know, it matches what the JPA agreement requires April 30th.
Right, but before it was June.
Yeah.
So this is better, not just because but in addition to matching the JPA, it's better for us it is.
Question about the dues being due on July first. So the previous acting executive director told me very specifically, do not send out the membership dues notices until after July first. Don't send it out in the previous fiscal year. And so that's been my practice, is to mail it out in July.
So we can revisit,
Okay.
especially because now that we've moved it up by 2 months, right? Because I do think our citizen job at point would appreciate getting the dues amount sooner rather than later, so they can build it into their budget in June.
So just for me, once we approve the budget by April 30th, then I can immediately send out the.
That makes sense, right?
But from the city standpoint, our city will not cut a check for the dues, until July 1, till the new fiscal year starts, so it won't come any sooner than that. Right. It'll have to be after our budget cycle changes, so I don't know if other cities are not.
And I think for Los Altos, it's the same thing. We wouldn't issue the check until after we approve the budget by the end of June. But for Shali's purposes, the question is, right now, she was under the impression that she would hold off on even sending the invoice, sending the bill to the cities until July 1st. What we're saying now with this change, since we have moved it up by April 30th, we would have approved our budget by April 30th. There's nothing that I'm aware of that would prohibit her then to send the bill to our cities, regardless if they don't pay till July 1st.
So, I heard that, and I do remember that, Shelley. But exactly what Anne said, that's what I was thinking. Cities will not pay because the new fiscal year starts July 1. So that wording there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On or before July first is a problem for cities.
Yeah.
for all the
Right.
cities.
And so the question to Shali's point, and for this feedback, Jen, is we change it to say that we will send the invoice, but to Anne and Tina's point, we may not get paid before July 1st, and realistically, we don't. And there are always cities who don't pay until later in the fall.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to pay July 1 because I think almost everyone has the same fiscal year.
Why not make it the end of July and?
Why not change the full amount?
But how do people feel about that? Do we want to put a date by which our cities need to pay the bill? And if so, what is a realistic date for that?
I think we should have a date because isn't there a section if you haven't paid in a certain amount of 60 days?
From 60 days from what date?
I don't remember, but I do remember reading that somewhere in January. Jenny, by the way, you're marvelous in how you sorted it out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we know that, but even after the discussion
Andrew did a really good job.
at exec committee, when I was reading it, it was like, why, did she miss anything? No,
There it is.
great.
Oh, no, can you just say though?
That's a strength, I am.
Could you say something like the full amount shall be due and payable on July 1st, effective July 1st of each year, and remit it within 60 days? Something like that? Okay. Yeah.
Payment is due.
When is the date?
Is it fair to say someone who has to do a lot of follow-up with the cities? July is a very slow month, and sometimes it's hard to get a hold of people. So if I could have the 60 days from July
And I
1st.
know from being treasurer, we would have to be checking with some cities, I won't name names.
July 1 and you're giving them 60 days.
60 days from written notice.
But here the suspension says 60 days after the date on which payment is due, if the full payment has not been received.
For suspension.
That's the one I was recalling. Something like. I think we need
So
to change
should
it.
we, and I liked Anne's language, should we just say the full amount is due within 60 days of when Shali sends the notice? Which is typical, if we approve it April 30th, that would be, let's say you get it out by May 15th.
This goes back to what the previous executive director had was, we shouldn't issue the notice until July 1st. But you want to give them notice, is what you're saying.
For our budget. but not the payment. So we're trying to separate the two things.
Yeah.
When the notice goes out, which I think is clear, soon after we approve the budget. What I'm not clear on, go ahead.
Well, I think you want to be mindful of the JPA that says failure to pay dues within 60 days following a notice. So we shouldn't send the notice out until June, because then that would give people, you know.
So Jenny, what's the notice? Is there a way an email can be sent to address all the issues, which is technically not a notice? Because we can't change the JPA.
What, so can you, Jenny, can you give me the distinction between, sorry, I should be able to do it. The distinction between an invoice and a notice? Because from my, ultimately, we need to give them notice so that they can do the appropriate budgeting for the next fiscal year. If we change the membership threshold or fees.
Right.
So that to me is the May 15th notice.
Exactly.
And I think it's a two-step process, and then the invoice, and so the wording here somewhere. And
We could
should
just
be-
say we've
should be-
adopted the budget and the budget includes fees. This is not a notice. We'll send you a separate notice.
That's an email. That's what I was saying. What is not a notice and yet sending the information across?
Because we also adopt the budget in April 30th, and before that, we've done a preliminary budget that we've presented to the city manager so that they're in the loop. So we go over and above to make sure, but we can come up with some verbiage to say we've adopted the budget. The budget
It is.
includes fees for the next fiscal year of this. We will be sending you a notice to pay your fees. And then I think we just need to make sure that the bylaws put in the full amount shall be due and payable on or before certain date that makes.
Everybody's following, right? So we can't change the JPA. That's what and because the JPA has the 60-day suspension language from the notice, we're trying to make the notice date reasonable.
After which the payments do.
So I like Janice's suggestion of, when we adopt the budget, Shally lets the city managers, let the cities know, we've adopted the budget, here's the amounts that they can build that into the budget. But the actual notice that would trigger the 60-day clock, we're suggesting pushing that out to make it more realistic on when our cities would pay.
Maybe again, I think Larry's point, one's a notice, one's an invoice.
Yeah. Just clarify that, the invoice goes out in July.
Which
Sorry.
Invoice earlier, notice is the trigger, so you want the notice to be later.
When you send out the invoice around, let's say July 1st is due, put a notice in there too. That under the bylaws, you have 60 days until after July 1st to make the payment. So they both kind of go together and they know that they have to pay within 60 days. You've done your notice at the same time.
Without calling it a notice.
It's a notice of payment, but I'm doing it at the same time. When she sends out the invoice, and it doesn't matter when she sends it out, she could send it out on May 1st. You could put a letter in saying payments are due on July 1st, but you have 60 days from July 1st within which to make the payment.
So they receive the letter May 15, but it's really telling them the trigger of July. Yes.
So that means you might not receive funds for 2 months after.
You do not get.
It happens.
In our, by fiscally.
We have to have enough reserves to go through that period. Some cities will pay immediately, and some cities will take a while.
So with respect to the dues, do you want to just a couple options? There's a sentence in there that says the full amount shall be due and payable on or before July 1 right now. We could either change the date or we could strike the whole sentence. But I think you want.
We want it in there, and it's 60 days from July 1st.
Okay.
So that is the notice that goes with the invoice, which can go on any date.
Yes.
And if we are short on reserve, no pizza for those 2 months.
We don't have a.
So do we also add there or in that reminder, the 60-day suspension part?
And the language from the JPA, put it in the bylaws as another reminder.
No, in that invoice, I'm piggybacking on.
The notice that goes with the invoice.
And we can work with Shally to create the notice. We'll do a template notice so that Shally can send the same notice.
I was adding another sentence to it, that
Okay.
They are ignoring it right now, some cities. Doesn't matter.
Okay, I think we're good. So then I think we're good, Jenny.
So I'm gonna say the full amount.
All right, next section.
Let's see.
So that was a good catch, Javed.
The section 7 adoption and amendments that caused a lot of consternation when we sent the unincorporated out for review because for the unincorporated association, the actual member agencies approved it. So we modified this language to correspond to their joint development agreement, and it is this body that adopts it.
Any questions?
None of this, I missed a typo that I wanted to point out. It's way back. What you would be calling now section 2 and subsection 2.3, a few pages up.
Give it a header.
Header, it's,
Don't be second.
Is that twice?
yeah, that comes.
Someone else pointed that out to us as well.
I
And
was
the
reading
motion
history.
later will give you authority to make those non-substantive. Any other questions? What's the next section, Jen?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it? Yeah. Oh, Carmen.
For the, rules of order, you have Rosenberg.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Do we have a copy of that? Rosenberg's.
Traditionally, when I was first a city attorney, they always used Robert's Rules of Order, but now it's the preference to really go with Rosenberg's Rules of Order, so we can. You can have
Copy of
a
everybody?
copy.
So Shelby will circulate information. And then we should also attach a copy to the bylaws at the back.
Okay, you would allow them to be amended and updated, or?
That's what we do in the city.
And then on section, Article 5, I know for schedule and locations. Now, did I understand it right that we're going to be taking turns at different places, or is this going to be the?
So,
Because I just feel for other cities that live way out there, and I'd like to spend my last place.
so that could change with Sunnyvale. So Larry, you know.
Historically, this meeting was held in Sunnyvale.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Until COVID, and then COVID stopped that, and then
This is
we,
not going to be a permanent location, is it?
Oh, wouldn't that be great? No, it's not. It's not. It's not. So Carmen, just so you know, we only have, so August we'll have a South County meeting. And then we have 3 more meetings here, and then starting in January, Larry is the presumptive president. And so we'd be back in Sunnyvale, and the board can always decide, you know, after he does his year, if you want to stay in Sunnyvale going ahead, like we did in the past. Or, so for this year, just to answer your, I just said, because I joked with Mark that I'm gonna have meetings in a couple other cities. That was just my commitment for this year. Going forward, we could still rotate, you could have it in one city, regardless of who's president. So those are things we can figure out going forward. Yeah. Because of the time, I'm gonna move us to a motion, if no more.
One very quick thing. There are variations.
I say we discuss them all tonight.
Why don't we take Rosenberg Rules of Order approved by the board? And that way we can just, at a meeting, decide.
That way, yeah, that way the one that is attached, as Lisa said, to the bylaws. Okay, there works. Great.
Okay, we're looking for a motion. I don't see public comment. A motion to approve the bylaws. This is a big step for us. With the amendments discussed tonight, the amendments in the red line that was part of the packet, and to delegate authority to our attorneys to make any minor non-substantive changes. And she's given me the exact language, which is adopt a resolution adopting bylaws for the Santa Clara County Cities Association Joint Powers Agency with the amendments discussed and approved tonight.
Wait, I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Javed and Tina, I don't know who's, one was first and one was second.
Yeah, I'm giving this.
We did public.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I can't go. Done this without Jenny and her team,
Good job.
right? I just want to say they're amazing. So thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Will I get the wording for the motion from Ken?
Thank you. Next we'll move on and we're running behind, guys. We talked about dues a lot. We'll move to LAC, update, and we'll turn it over to Chair Walia.
Well, that's not what you mean. I think I am ready. Okay, a couple of things. At the LAC meeting this evening, firstly, we had an update from our board president, Nikki Fliger, regarding the Sacramento. Thank you, it's a mouthful. The City Leaders Summit in April in Sacramento. And one key thing that I'd like to share with everyone here is the comprehensive reform bill regarding crime, AB 2943, that we did not vote on this evening, but Lisa brought us the information. And at LAC, we will consider it most likely in the next meeting. A quick thank you to the board. After our April meeting, Nisa and I sent the letters out regarding the 3 bills that we were going to take a position on. Our website will be dated with those years. The other update that I would like to bring to everybody's attention is regarding income graduated fixed charges on the energy space. It's in the energy space. It's a very actively developing space, to the extent that AB 1999 last night was dead, and this morning I was informed that it has been amended and it is moving through the legislative process again. So yeah, you didn't know that, right? I don't check the comments. So 2 key things to share with everyone there is that income graduated fixed charges, most likely, if this is how it moves, it can't rise higher than inflation between 2024 and 2028. And secondly, in 2028, the CPUC would allow IOUs to impose a fixed charge of no more than $10 and $5 for non-care customers. In June, at the LAC meeting, we are going to have SCCE CEO Monica Padilla and Bena Chang, who is the Director of Legislative and Regulatory Affairs, present on the energy bills. There has been so much going on there that I intentionally did not bring them, even though they are very important. I did not bring them to LAC earlier, and so in June, I think that's the right time for us to take a position on. Unfortunately, the board will not be able to vote that night because of the event. But based on where we are, I think we are in a good place. Okay, with that said, tonight LAC was very busy. We went through 8 bills. And I'm going to go through those 8 bills very quickly now so that the board can vote, and based on that, we can send position letters. Okay, I will just say right now, I believe all 8 we are supporting. That's the recommendation from LAC, just to keep it very simple.
There was one more, Rose, 1037. Wiener.
Thank you, Wiener, of course. Okay, let's start right there. Thank you for correcting me. SB 1037 is
Financial penalty.
planning and zoning, housing element related, basically financial penalties up to $50,000 per month for cities. I'm trying not to repeat myself too much. Okay. This is essentially sponsored by the State Attorney General, Rob Bonta, and supported by various housing advocacy organizations and YIMBY organizations, but the bill is opposed by various associations representing cities and advocating for local control. Because essentially with this, the states taking away a city's right, even if the city is acting in good faith, and whether it's a compliant housing element that the city has not been able to. I'm losing it, it's been a long day, okay. Would the state allow the state attorney general to ask a court to find a city that fails to adopt a compliant housing element, or a city that violates state laws that require ministerial approval of certain housing projects? That's essentially the bottom line, that we can get fined by up to $50,000 per month. And it does not it doesn't provide an opportunity for the cities to correct an honest mistake or even address issues where we currently are with not getting compliant or certified housing elements. So that's the one we opposed, or the recommendation from LAC is to oppose. Questions?
It was unanimous, I think.
Yes, it was unanimous. No, it was not unanimous.
There were a couple no's.
Two,
Okaltos and San Jose voted no.
Anyhow,
You're allowed to say that.
it was not unanimous. Which ones?
Okaltos and San Jose.
Okay, thanks.
So they were supporting this?
No,
So our LAC representative voted against, opposing this bill.
against opposing this, so that's supporting it.
no. They didn't want to, they didn't want to oppose it. That's the thing.
Right, no in the opposition.
So,
You want to take a motion? on it?
So
do you want me to take a motion on each one? Because there may be different votes, actually. Okay, so do I have a motion to oppose?
Yes, so moved.
Wait, one second. Is the motion to, it was the motion.
Motion to oppose, Senate Bill 1037, unanimous.
Second.
See if there's any public comments
So
on
we-
these bills.
We voted yes to oppose it.
Correct.
We didn't know to support it?
So you're asking. So we've done it different, so in the past, we basically vote to accept the recommendation from LAC, that's how we've done it before, as opposed to making it a new motion.
All right.
Okay.
So,
We accept the letter.
so the motion is to accept the LAC recommendation.
Second.
And there's no members of the public.
I will,
Well, there's one member of the public, but their hand is not
I
raised.
will just I'll pause for a second and just take public comment right now, because I'm sure it's. Do we have any public comment on this whole item, LAC item? No. Okay. Can we call for a vote, Shelley? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
One abstention. Yeah.
Also abstaining, but we don't have San Jose anymore here, just to.
Majority. So-
Yeah, I know, I just want to make sure that we don't record there is no way of knowing that she left.
She left at 8:30.
Okay,
I'm like a nerd girl.
that's good, thank you. Okay, that takes us to the nice ones, SB 21, two nice ones. SB 21, nice in the sense of we are supporting something that would help our residents. SB 21 is by Umberg on controlled substances. This measure would require a person who's convicted of crimes related to controlled substances to receive a written advisory of the danger of manufacturing or distribution of controlled substances, and that if a person dies because of that action, the distributor can be charged with voluntary manslaughter or murder. We started with this bill and we had quite a bit of discussion because we felt it doesn't go far enough. Till Vice Mayor Fruin pointed out, the Senate voted 39-0, just let's move forward with the rest of the bill. So I just want to share that with you. It goes some distance. Do I have a motion or questions? I'm looking at the two because nobody else will have questions.
Motion to accept LAC's recommendation.
And on which bill was it?
SB 21.
Okay, by Turner?
Yes.
Okay, and second by?
Second?
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone? No? Abstain? It passes unanimously.
So Chair Walia, because all the other bills are the same position, you can just do all of them and do one motion.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you. Exactly one, let me do AB 817.
Okay.
So let's do AB 817, that's open meeting, thank you. Thank you, it was painful going through that in life. AB 817 by Pacheco is an open meetings for teleconferencing for subsidiary bodies. And we, again, LAC recommended that we support this. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Second by Watanabe. Moved by Turner, second by Watanabe, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Campbell abstains. Okay, now, thanks, President. Multiple crime bills that touch upon jurisdiction or the aggregate or so on and so forth. These are individual bills with some overlaps, but essentially addressing retail crime. AB 1779, AB 1794, AB 1772, AB 3209.
Recommend, LAC's recommendation.
And a second. Mayor Mohan seconds it. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? None. There is one bill still left. That's why. SB 1095, this is by Senator Becker. He may have talked about it last time. This is Cozy Homes Cleanup Act. Very simply, it prohibits mobile home parks and homeowner associations from instituting barriers to electric appliances. It has been sponsored by BACMed, supported by US Green Building Council, and SCC also supports it, and plenty of other coalition of environmental and affordable housing organizations. I could not find anybody opposing this. Questions? Motion?
So moved.
Second by Margaret Abacoga. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Campbell abstain.
Campbell abstains on 1095. Okay. And that's the end of the LAC report. Thank you.
Awesome. No, thanks, Tina. Any public comment? Seeing none. I'm actually going to move up the update from BACMed. We have had Councilmember Bimker waiting, so we'll give her the floor. As you know, we get updates from our representatives on the different boards. And so we have an update. Councilmember Bimker.
Get out of here.
I can go fast, whatever you want, but I don't want to keep people here like being cranky, but I can do it fast or I can come back another time.
What's everybody's preference? You're here. Just go.
Just go. All right. Oh, till September, yeah. All right. And Shelley, do you have the slideshow I sent? Well, I'll chat while you pull that up and we'll. Yeah, I emailed it to you a little bit ago, but, so thank you for having me and hanging around. I think the last time I was in this room was when you voted, Sergio Lopez and I to, be the representatives. And of course, Margaret Abacoga also represents Santa Clara County, as does Supervisor Otto Lee. So you can catch me in any errors or omissions. But, you know, air quality is a significant issue for our county. Thank you. Because the Bay Area as a whole is currently in non-attainment, and Santa Clara County is one of the worst air quality areas in the Bay Area, with the exception of West Oakland. And you probably recall that last year, now Chair, Davina Hurt came and spoke to you along with our Deputy EO, Greg Nudd, about the appliance rules. So I'm not gonna, they did a detailed presentation. I'm not gonna go into that, except just to tell you that we do expect an update from Air District staff in December on the technical, workforce, and equity impacts of the 2027 deadline for water heaters. So that at that point, you can no longer have a new sale of anything but zero NOx water heaters. And in between now and then, we should have some interim reports that would be available to cities so that you can see where we're going. So I'm just going to do a quick update tonight on this 5 months of this year. And so if you could go, Shelley, you can actually skip the next slide. That's just an overview. So in January, the Air District was awarded a $15 million grant from the Department of Transportation. And this grant will add hundreds of EV charging ports and infrastructure across our area. And we're really happy that the Bay Area congressional delegation helped get this zero emission section into the bipartisan infrastructure law. And Chair Hurt and I had the opportunity last December to meet with Senator Padilla and other members of our delegation in DC to thank them for their support of our grant application that got us the 15 million bucks. So that's good news. Next slide. We'll move to February. So the Air District again procured some money, but this time it was from oil refineries. So this was very exciting. The Air District prevailed in 2 lawsuits that were filed by Chevron in Richmond and Martinez Refining Company in Martinez, both seeking to overturn some groundbreaking rules that we had passed previously in 2021. Specifically, Rule 6.5 is the most health protective rule of its kind in the nation. It reduces airborne particulate matter, which basically emissions from petroleum refinery fluidized catalytic cracking units, or FCCUs, produce that. So they're used in making gasoline and are a huge producer of particulate matter. So in short, the refineries dropped their lawsuits and will be required to comply with the rule. And as a result of their compliance, there will be an estimated 70% reduction in particulate matter from the Chevron facility and 80% reduction from the Martinez. It's really incredible. And Chevron will pay up to an unprecedented $138 million in penalties and a fund to benefit the community in Richmond, which is the most directly impacted because it neighbors the refinery. So it's just a huge win and big exciting time in February. Yeah. We're on the board longer than me, so give her some credit too. All right, so in March, the Air District announced, so next slide, yeah. Announced expansion of our Clean Cars for All program, which was previously limited to areas most impacted by air pollution, but is now expanded to the entire 9-county Bay Area in our jurisdiction. So for it's income qualified residents, $12,000 is available to retire older polluting vehicles that can be replaced with new or used hybrid, plug-in hybrid, electric, or fuel cell vehicles, or get a prepaid transit card, so the MTC folks like that, or e-bike and bike accessories. So it's all kinds of way to get the older, I think it's 2007 and prior, polluting cars off the road. So the increased amounts are in the slides and at the link. I'll let you find those yourself. Next slide, please. Also in March, the Air District announced the application period for the Clean Heat program. We don't see much of it in our cities, but in rural areas in our 9-county area, there are quite a few people who heat their homes with wood burning stoves. And so this program helps offset the cost of switching from a wood burning stove or a fireplace insert to an electric heat pump. So it offers qualifying homeowners up to $6,500 to replace an eligible device and additional funding if they are in a qualifying low income assistance program. And again, there's details at that link. Next slide. We are really proud that just last week, we voted to adopt the Community Emissions Reduction Plan for the Richmond, North Richmond, San Pablo communities. And while that's not in this county, it's a really unique, kind of groundbreaking, plan created in partnership with local community members, public agencies, and other stakeholders. And what it does is, it deals with air pollution sources, including fuel refining, as I talked about a minute ago, ships, marine terminals, railways, vehicle and freight traffic. And it was part of AB 617, which deals with under-resourced communities and historically impacted communities, to try to help them with air quality. So this is just a unique thing that we're really proud of, and we literally voted on it last week. Next slide, my last one. I told you I'd go fast. We want to share that the Spare the Air summer smog season began last week on May 1. One of the largest sources of smog pollution and greenhouse gases in the Bay Area are the millions of cars on our roadways. And this campaign encourages residents to drive less and look for ways to share, shorten, or change their commutes to reduce smog, traffic, and gridlock. Campaign began before Air Quality Awareness Week, which is this week. So it's very apropos that you have me here. Shally knows all. And Air Quality Awareness Week is a nationwide campaign to increase air quality awareness and inspire people to take steps to reduce their contribution to air pollution. So again, we have links there where you can find out more about Spare the Air here and Air Quality Awareness Week. So that's it. How'd I do? Any questions? Any questions? All right. Yes, sir.
The $138 million payment?
Yeah.
Who is it being paid to?
Yeah, so, and I said up to, because there's different, depending on how quickly they deal with some of the conversion that is mandated here to reduce, things will change. So that comes into the Air District coffers, but then the community fund, the community benefit fund goes directly to Richmond and areas. So. That's right, right? Yeah, there's a whole, like, there's segregated amounts that are in the settlement agreement of exactly what we do with each and what gets paid when, but yeah. Yes.
You guys are doing a wonderful job with this, reducing car emissions and just improving quality. One thing I've always had a pet peeve is the signal lights that stay red forever. And that's a tremendous amount of car emissions that are being, is there anything that your committee can do to tell cities and counties to put smart signals in? I mean, that shouldn't be that hard to do, but somebody needs to get after them, because there's a lot of.
I think that'd be tricky for us, because our jurisdiction is not over mobile sources, it is over stationary sources. So you got to talk to the California Air Resources Board about mobile sources, but I agree with you. And it's certainly something that, we could help, probably talking to, city planners and those kinds of things. And
jurisdiction may not be there, but if you can tell people to drive less and do that, can you tell people?
oh, the drive, yes. Yes, that's why we have that's why we're getting those, we do have that grant to get the old cars off so yes, we do like that. So I'll bring that back.
Go ahead. Hi, good to see you again. So, the landfill in Milpitas.
Yes.
And the odors, like the mouse smell, it goes from the landfill.
Yes.
Are you working on that somehow? Are you guys?
I don't have a current update on that, because you talked to me a lot about that. Do you know more about that?
It's been kind of at a stage.
Yeah, so if you can, continue working with the board and try to assess that where there was I do attend some of the meetings that we have there, and they did say there was a leak of some of the methane that leaks out. I mean, the word leak is pretty, it's not like leaking a lot, it's just that it's not, I guess they have certain levels that can come out, so there was a high level. So, yeah, I just want you to be proactive and trying to help our city with that smell.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me about that. One nice thing now is that your two appointees, Sergio and I chair the Policy Grants and Technology Committee, and he's the vice chair. And so we can, to the extent there's policy making around that, we can help that. And
Which committee is, I'm on finance and policy.
The last year you were sharing.
I remember the last time Rod Singh, when he was the chair, worked on that, so that was like.
But yeah, if you can just, continue working at it and,
Yeah.
that is, it's still, we're still worth talking about it.
That's why we bring them here, Carmen, because they're our representatives, and we should hold them accountable.
Yeah.
You're here, Vicky.
All
right.
President.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can I say the code? With his permission? Is it okay if I share your presentation?
Yes, you have permission to circulate.
Thank you, Councilmember Baker.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm gonna move back to item 7, and I'll be quick with the June 13th membership event. It's here. It will be in our Grand Oak Room, 7 p.m. The theme is mental health, how as cities we can help to address the mental health crisis. We have great news. El Camino Health has agreed to co-sponsor the event, so they're covering all the food and beverages except for alcohol. The speakers so far, we're still working to get a keynote speaker, but we have a panel. Mariko Sayak, a former member of ours, is going to be on that panel. He's either as a panelist or a moderator. But the focus would be having a speaker who talks about mental health as it relates to kids, mental health as it relates to seniors, and mental health as it relates to the broader community. So I'm very excited about the theme for the event. I'm very excited about El Camino Health. And I'm going to jump to section B of item 7. As an executive committee, we have a recommendation that we're very excited about. The theme is mental health, and we came up with the idea of doing a mental health awareness initiative where we make signs, and Shali will share the signs that we have worked with the Los Altos PIO to create. We would have these yard signs, and we would order for $1,000, 215 of these signs, and we would all put them up in our cities. And so we would order these by June 1st, divide 215 by 15 cities, and we'll figure out, which cities would get what number. But the idea is in every city, we would put these signs in the same general locations, for example, around City Hall or downtown, so that if someone is driving from Palo Alto to Montecito, they're seeing these signs. And so we're very excited about this initiative. It ties in with our June event. And so what we need from the board is authorization. And listen, if we want to order more signs, we just have to go higher than 1,000. I will tell you, we already approved a budget for $3,000 for the event, for the June event, that we no longer need to spend because El Camino is sponsoring it. In addition to that, as Shali reminded me earlier, we were budgeting $3,000 because we were planning to charge for this event. We will no longer be charging council members to attend. It's free now for council members to attend. So we've moved from a $6,000 event to, well, we'll have to pay for alcohol because we imagine our folks want alcohol. So that has to come out of the $3,000 we budgeted, but we still have a sizable amount of money to cover this. So the ask of the board tonight is to approve $1,000 for 215 signs, and here are the samples. And your city managers love this idea. Shali presented it to them, and they really are excited about working with us on this. And so we need authorization to spend 1,000, or if you want more signs, if you think 215 is not enough for the 15 cities, then we can always increase it to 1,500, whatever the board members believe would make sense. So questions, comments?
So, good question. Thank you. Which one, number 1 is the one that they chose, or?
No, all 4.
All 4.
All 4.
All 4.
I did not share this with the city managers. I shared the idea with it, and they loved it.
They loved it, and any concerns or
No concerns about spending money on the sign.
no concern about putting it in the cities? Because when I'm hearing City Hall, somebody will need to take that call, and I don't know who's going to be making that decision. I'm assuming the city managers. Unless you put it on the council agenda, and who knows where it goes. So no resistance. That's why I'm specifically asking city managers.
And you call somebody once they see this sign? Is there a follow-up?
That was going to be my.
Oh, great. So one of the things our PIO asked if we wanted a QR code on it so that people could do, the QR code. So that's something she could easily do, and it could link to the Citizens Association website. So that's an option, because to your question, what number would we put? So we could have, and she actually created a page, the Los Altos PIO, Sonia Lee, I want to give her credit because she spent the last week working on this. She created a sample landing page on the Cities Association, that if we did the QR code, we could have resources listed on that page. And so that was her suggestion.
So, what was that? Yeah, so it's 511 for the county, but I was going to also say that we should at least, and so before we print, send the examples to all the city managers, because each of our cities have slightly different sign codes. There should be at least a website beyond the landing. So having a QR, and that was going to be one of my comments, is having a QR code that goes to our cities association website is important, and having it to be mental health is important, but having at least our URL somewhere on that sign, when people complain, which someone will always
It
complain,
will always be.
at least they will have a website to go to that they at least know who put this up. But yeah, just
No,
doing
great feedback.
doing a quick clarification with the city managers that after you have the QR code and the URL, just to say, is there anything else that your city requires for signs put into public right of way of some sort, or private, but yeah.
And the size of the sign would also be helpful to include there because of the sign on.
2 by 3, right?
Yeah, it's much smaller than, or I can get the exact sign. It's not the, yeah.
The sign ordinance varies city to city. I worked on it in my city 10 years ago, that's right.
So it's smaller
For
than,
your campaign signs, it's not,
it's smaller.
it's smaller than our campaign signs that we all have.
But her question, I think, is if they are yard signs, how will they be put there? Are these like yard signs?
Yeah, so the idea is, so for example, each city would get 15 signs. Your city managers would work with staff to help us put the signs close to City Hall, wherever is permitted, and the downtown area. That's easy, just have, yeah.
They're state.
They're state, yes, they're the yard site. That's what Sonia looked into.
Is the mental health phone number going to go on there too? The
Well, that's what,
511?
Margaret was suggesting, put the 511. That's, this is so helpful, because we were going to do the QR code, which would have the landing page with a list of resources. But so far, no one had suggested putting a number on this. And is it?
Is that 511 or what is that?
I think it's important because you don't want people just going to your website, or we don't want, my apologies,
Right.
to come to just our website and then now what?
Well, the landing page would have resources and numbers, but to your
I
point,
understand,
yeah,
but for them, whoever is doing it, it's an extra hurdle.
Mhm.
And so having a phone number, if we can, on that, right there, is exactly the way I think we should do it.
This is so helpful.
Should the 511 people be advised that this is coming?
Yes, I agree.
I shouldn't do it.
511.
I will talk to Steve.
I don't know what that number is.
I know Margaret said 511. I
It's
could ask.
988.
It is.
988.
We'll figure out the number. We're going in the week, like, we will figure out the appropriate number.
There's a county
No,
number.
leave the meeting.
Yes, we will figure out the right number.
So are you going to provide a soft copy so we could put it on our city website, or is it just a yard sign?
So we're ordering the yard signs, 215 or more, if you guys authorize more, and every city will get their signs. The website idea was only for the Cities Association website. The landing page that Sonia created, the mock-up, had one of these signs at the top. Like, she just did a quick mock-up.
To pick up on her idea, just like when SDCE sends their social media posting to Saratoga City Hall, they just blast it on the social media, whatever they are sending. I don't have to get into it where people, whether Nextdoor, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, they keep on sending it forward.
So you can make the toolkit.
Exactly.
Sonia will make the media toolkit similar to what SBCE does, that you can provide to your PIOs and then they can just send it out.
I think that's a great idea.
And then Anthony, or assistant or city manager, so he knows.
Thank you, Anthony.
Sits right next to me, I can talk.
Sonia does, yeah. Any other ideas? This is very helpful, and I know we're way over, but this is very helpful. And we're on track. If we order it by next week, we'll get it in 2 weeks, so we're on schedule, because this is the vendor or city works with, so they're working with us on the timeline. All right, so if I see no more questions, I'm looking for a motion to authorize 1,000 or more to order these signs, and we'll take with all the direction, the motion would be, you know, the direction that was given tonight. So for how much? How much? 1,000, we're sticking with 1,215 signs. And another thing we're looking into is working with Caltrans to see if we could put some of these signs along El Camino in the median, because so many of our cities touch El Camino. It would be nice for people driving along El Camino to see these signs. So we're doing a lot behind the scenes, thanks to the staff. But thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to authorize up to $1,000 to purchase these signs for our mental health awareness initiative. Jenny?
Second by
I can take a friendly amendment if somebody wants to. You can resend it.
Okay, thank you. So we have the motion seconded by Anne. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. We're excited about this. Do we have a Santa Clara County City Managers Association update?
Happy to be here.
Sally, any executive director update? No. Thank you. And then joys and challenges? None. Everybody, I am fine with that. Oh, I do. So we haven't adjourned yet. I do want to thank Carmen before she leaves for reminding us of doing these name tags and then Shali following through. Thank you. Before we adjourn, Tina has one announcement and then we'll adjourn.
Just a very simple joy. Cooper Garrett Vineyards in Saratoga have been honored last month for their leadership in going green, some community award for sustainability in the vineyard industry. I thought it's good to highlight. Yes. Because we do have sustainability as a goal here.
Greer has one. Okay, before we adjourn, go ahead, Greer.
Real quick, since Councilmember Baker here, we were both working with representatives from the Muslim, Palestinian communities and Israeli and Jewish communities since January on a unity statement that kind of talked about Palo Alto values. Of course, we're getting a lot of pressure on ceasefire, don't have ceasefire, and we released that on Monday night to council. We got a lot of great feedback, and so we'll see what it does. But I think we're both very proud of the work that we had done, and the only task force like that we're aware of, being able to kind of bring the two sides together to be able to develop that statement.
And it was a really great group. I heard a lot about it and it was well done. So really, pretty done. With that, we will adjourn at 9:21. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to give you my joy and frustration at the same time.